Hello and welcome to our webinar this evening. We're going to be talking about different diabetes myths and the actual truths behind the myths. We have a wonderful presentation for you this evening. So should you have any technical difficulties during the broadcast, there is a number at the bottom of your screen that you can call Log Me In Support. The number is 1-800-263-6317. Our format includes a short presentation followed by an interactive discussion. To type in a question, you use the question section of the webinar toolbar. You'll have a chance to ask questions at the end of the presentation this evening. So we look forward to an interactive webinar. Just a disclaimer, we know that the information that you're about to hear may motivate you to make lifestyle changes, but please consult your physician before making any changes to your current routine. This online question and answer session is intended to really give general advice only. This information is not a substitute for personal medical advice and involves the professional opinion of the Cecilia Health Certified Diabetes Care and Education Specialist. Our webinar leader this evening is Teresa Grasso. Teresa is a registered dietitian and certified diabetes care and education specialist. She's been working in the nutrition field for over 20 years and has specialized in diabetes care for the last 10. She resides in New Jersey with her husband and 3 girls. She leads an active life with her family as they are involved in multiple sports and activities. She's passionate about nutrition and leading a healthy lifestyle and enjoys teaching others how to improve their health. So thank you very much for being with us this evening, Teresa, and you may take it away.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to our talk this evening. Just a little bit about our agenda. Our discussion tonight will include common diabetes myths. We're going to talk about how to spot a myth, and we will have some question and answers and sharing at the end of the presentation. So feel free to ask any questions, and I will hopefully be able to answer those for you. And just to note, please talk with your healthcare provider before making any changes to your diabetes treatment. If there's anything you hear tonight that you want to share with your doctor, please do so, but consult your doctor before making any changes. Okay, so we're going to jump right in. So our first diabetes myth or truth is all diabetes pills are not safe. So is that a myth or a truth? So that is a myth. Diabetes medications go through extensive testing before they get FDA approval. And it's important to know that certain medications shouldn't be taken by people with other medical conditions. So yes, all medications have some side effects. I know sometimes we hear those long lists when you listen to commercials on TV and they, go over all these possible side effects. So it is something to talk to your doctor, talk to your pharmacist. But according to FDA, most side effects are not serious and they go away on their own. And if you do have any concerns or you're experiencing any side effects, you just want to discuss that. Be open with your doctor to discuss what these side effects are and to see if, it's something that they can work with you, or maybe sometimes we need a change of medication. Sometimes certain medications don't agree with certain people. Some diabetes medications, a side effect is low blood sugar. So that's important to know what those side effects are. If you're on a medication that may be causing you low blood sugars, then you want to work with your doctor, your dietitian, your health coach to make sure that you're on a good plan to prevent some of these side effects. So, there's different things we want to do. Some medications should be taken with food. Sometimes a medication may say take 30 minutes before a meal. So it's always best to know how to take the medication properly, and a lot of times taking it properly is something that can prevent some of the side effects. Okay, our next one is taking diabetes medication means you failed at diabetes. Okay, So this is certainly a myth. So a lot of people may, start off their diabetes journey with controlling blood sugars with diet and exercise, and then they might find over time that they may need medication. It certainly does not mean you failed. It doesn't mean you failed if you need to go on insulin. It doesn't mean you failed if you need to add additional medications. What we know about diabetes is it's a progressive disease. So over time, our bodies produce less insulin. So most people will eventually need some medication to manage their blood sugar. And it doesn't mean everybody will. Some people can last or do really well with diet and exercise, and they may not need medication, but most people will eventually need that little bit of help because the pancreas may not be able to keep up with the body's need for insulin. So this is a really good slide about how type 2 diabetes changes over time. So if you could see, the first line on the top is insulin resistance, and then our body's insulin production, and then our blood sugar, our blood glucose. So when everything is normal, those three are kind of all working together. If there's insulin resistance, the body is producing insulin, and it's keeping those blood sugars stable. When someone has prediabetes, their insulin resistance is increasing, which means they need to make a little more insulin. And then, because those blood sugars are creeping up. So over time with diabetes, you still have that insulin resistance, but that production of insulin is kind of falling off. And what happens is when we don't have that insulin production, that blood sugar is going up. So, again, diet, exercise, we know that those help. And then we may need a medication because our goal is always to keep blood sugar under control. So we want to make sure we're doing all we can to keep it at a good level. If we let our blood sugar just go too high over time, that's when we can have the complications that can come with diabetes. So adding a medication, again, does not mean that you failed. Adding a medication is sometimes needed to keep that blood sugar under control, to keep you as healthy as possible. Okay, our next myth or truth is on diabetes medications and side effects. So diabetes medications will cause me to go blind. Is this a myth or a truth? And we know that that is a myth. Our medications are there to help manage our diabetes and to help lower our blood sugar. When we keep our blood sugar under control, we're less at risk for the complication. And one of complication with diabetes is that it can affect our eyes. So if we're keeping our blood sugar under control and we need a medication to keep it under control, chances are we're helping our eyes. We're preventing those eye diseases that can happen. Where managing blood sugar helps decrease the chance of those diabetes complications. And sometimes people are not starting medications or insulin soon enough. So, maybe they've put it off or haven't gone to the doctor for a while. And by the time someone gets to the doctor, maybe those eye problems have already started. So that's where, it's not the medication that can cause some eye disease. It's the diabetes in itself, and how we're going to prevent that eye disease is keeping that blood sugar under control, which again might include taking a medication to keep our blood sugar under control. Okay, so a little more on a myth or a truth. I can stop taking medication when my blood sugar is normal. So I hear a lot of times people tell me, well, I can feel when my blood sugar's high. I don't need to take my medication, or I'm feeling good. So if my blood sugar is under control or it's normal, do I need to take my medication? So yes, you need to take your medication. So even if blood sugar is under control, we're not going to stop our medication because that medication is helping to keep our blood sugar in our target range. We want to take our medication as the doctor prescribes it, and we always want to talk to the doctor before stopping any of our medications. So, again, checking your blood sugar is so important to stay in control of your diabetes. Everybody's lifestyle changes. So, take for instance, maybe somebody who wasn't exercising at all. Now they start exercising and they're seeing better blood sugar numbers. And there could be a case for maybe the blood sugar starting to go a little too low, which can be dangerous also. So that's where we want to step in and make sure we're talking to our doctor and going over, those blood sugar logs, looking at our blood work, our A1C. And if, there's a case where maybe we're controlling the blood sugar and maybe there is a chance we might be able to change up some of those medications, lower a dose. But you always want to talk to your doctor before doing that. You don't want to just stop those medications. Okay, so a little bit truth or a myth on diet, and we have carrots and beets are high in sugar and should be avoided by people with diabetes. So I know a lot of times people hear certain foods and that they shouldn't eat them, but this is a myth because carrots and beets are low in carbohydrates. Our non-starchy vegetables are lower in carbohydrates, and they're not going to affect our blood sugar unless we eat very large portions of them. So think of non-starchy, we're thinking salads, cucumbers, peppers, broccoli, zucchini, cauliflower. The ones that are starchy vegetables, they are going to contain carbohydrates. So we know things like corn, peas, potatoes, whether they're red potatoes, white potatoes, sweet potatoes, those have carbohydrates. So if you look at the little chart here and we look at corn, peas, the potatoes, half a cup of any of those vegetables has about 15 grams of carbohydrate. So those are our starchy vegetables, and they're similar to, say, half a cup of pasta or another starchy food. So those we need to kind of think about. If I'm having a starchy vegetable, then I want to look at what else am I eating at that meal. So let's say I'm having rice and I want to have peas, they both have carbohydrates in them. So I really need to look at my portions. So rather than say, oh, I can't eat these, I want to maybe look at controlling my portion. So our starchy food, if we think of the food plate, which is a really good way of thinking of eating, if we split our plate in half of our plate should be our vegetables, our non-starchy vegetables. So again, the salads, the broccoli, the cauliflower, and then the other half of our plate, you want to split that between your protein and your carbohydrates. So if I'm going to have rice and peas together, then I need to keep that to the quarter of my plate, or I choose one or the other. But it's okay to eat both, but I need to keep that portion small. So maybe I'm doing a half a cup of peas, half a cup of rice in that quarter of my plate, and then that would be okay. Back to the carrots and the beets. So about 10 baby carrots or half a cup of beets is around 8 grams of carbohydrate. So, a little more than half of what your half a cup of your corn or your peas or your potatoes would be. So, if you're eating a small amount of those, the 10 carrots, a half a cup of beets, you're not getting a lot of carbohydrates. If you were to eat a bigger portion of those, then maybe you are getting those carbohydrates, and we would just want to find some balance in our meal. We would want to make sure we're not doing those and then plus a large portion of another carbohydrate. So always trying to balance things out is a key, and trying to choose the non-starchy ones to fill half of your plate is important. And now we move on to fruit. So people with diabetes should not eat fruit because it contains too much sugar. So I know this is one that a lot of people think certain fruits have a lot of sugar in them, but this is a myth. Certainly people with diabetes can enjoy fruit. Yes, fruit has natural sugar in it. So yes, fruit is a carbohydrate. So again, we're always going to go back to those portion sizes. How much am I eating? So a good way to think of it, you're going to spread your servings throughout the day. So it's perfectly okay to eat 2 to 3 pieces of fruit in a day. We're just not going to eat 2 to 3 pieces of fruit at one time, because then I would be getting a lot of carbohydrates at one time. So I want to think of the portions, and I have to choose moderate portions. So a serving of fruit, think of like a small apple about the size of a tennis ball, or orange about that size. Something like grapes. That's a big one. A lot of people say, oh, grapes have a lot of sugar. So, if I sit there with a bunch of grapes and I just keep eating, I could end up getting a lot of carbohydrates, because if I'm not paying attention, before I know it, I could eat half that bag of grapes, and then I'm getting a big portion. So grapes, generally about 12 to 15 small grapes is a serving. So I would just want to portion that out. If a fruit is large, like a banana, a lot of times we hear bananas, they're too high in sugar, but again, it's their portion. Some bananas are going to be big, so then they're going to have more carbohydrates. So a half of a banana is a serving and has about that 15 grams of carbs. Or same with like a mango, half of a mango is a serving. If we do melon, cantaloupe, about a cup is a serving. Watermelon, 1 1/4 cups is a serving. A lot of fruit is in season now, which is great. So things like berries, a cup of strawberries is a serving, or has around that 15 grams. Blueberries, about 3/4 of a cup. So that's one you might hear people say, oh, I eat berries, they're lower in sugar. They are, because you get a little bit of bigger portion of those. So you get a cup of strawberries is around that 15 grams. So they're all equivalent. So a cup of strawberries and a half of a banana, both of those have 15 grams of carbs. Again, we're looking at the portions. How much am I eating, to determine, how many carbs I'm getting in, and we want to spread those out throughout the day. Okay, people with diabetes should only eat diabetic food. So this is certainly a myth, because there really is no such thing as diabetic food, because people with diabetes can eat any food in moderation. Yes, we want to stay away from things that have a lot of added sugar in them. So we don't want to do sodas and juices and cakes and cookies and things that have a lot of sugar. Can we have a piece of cake or cookie, every once in a while, a special occasion? Of course, because we are going to look at portions, and we want to look at how can I fit those carbs into my meal plan. Juices, sodas, things that have sugar, liquids, those I would say we definitely want to stay away from. But when we're talking about food, we really can fit any food. There's no special diabetes foods. There's no special things you have to order and eat. You can eat any regular food, but we're always going to look at the portions and how much we're eating, and we're always going to look at the balance. We don't want a plate that's filled with just carbohydrates, or just a bowl of pasta. We want to think of that food plate where we're portioning things out, and we're certainly, like you see that salad in the picture, we always want to think of those vegetables and adding those into our diet, because they're going to be low in carbs, high in nutrients, a lot of vitamins and minerals we need, and they're going to help balance out our meals, which is a good thing. Okay, so some signs of misinformation are things to be aware of, and inaccurate information. If you see lists of foods that say these are good foods and these are bad foods for your diabetes, that kind of goes back to what I was just talking about, in that there's no special food for diabetes. Somebody who has diabetes doesn't need to buy things that say sugar free and all of those maybe gimmicky things. Because again, we're always looking at portions, we're looking at carbohydrates. So even if we choose something that's sugar free, doesn't necessarily mean we can eat as much of it as we want, because it still can have carbohydrates. Take for example a sugar-free ice cream. you know when they make that ice cream, they may not add more sugar to it, but ice cream is made of milk, and milk naturally has sugar in it, naturally has carbs. So that sugar-free ice cream is still going to have carbohydrates, which means we're still going to have to watch our portions and how much we're eating. So, there's no good and bad. We're going to look at portions. We don't want to think of like food as being bad. Sometimes, it's a mental game too. If we're say, oh, I ate a cookie and that was bad and I ate this bad food, and then you kind of feel guilty and you feel bad about yourself. What we need to do is, if once in a while we have a cookie, then we can think, okay, my next meal, or my next snack, I'm gonna have something healthy. I'm gonna eat some cut up vegetables. I'm gonna go for an extra walk today. I'm gonna do something positive instead of beating myself up because I think I ate something bad. So, just kind of think about foods as balance and portions, and you can always work with your educator, your coach, if you have any questions on what would be a good meal plan or how to fit certain foods into your meal plan. Um, if you ever see anything that's a promise to cure diabetes, we know that is more than likely inaccurate information, because there's no cure for diabetes. If it's an unknown website, you don't want to get information from random websites. The American Diabetes Association is a really good site where you can get information, and they have a food hub and recipes and things like that. So that's a good place to start. And then our Cecilia Health website also has some really great information. So, just make sure, if you're unsure of a website, and if it's something that's legit, always bring that to your doctor, your nurse, your coach's attention, your dietitian, and they would be able to help you out with that. If something is claiming, and it sounds too good to be true, to help improve your blood sugars, I'm sure everyone has seen articles and over-the-counter pills that they try to sell. Usually those too good to be true things are really, not something that's good for you. If it's a recommendation based on a single study, so sometimes again, these like advertisements or claims, again, if you ever are unsure, bring it to your doctor or your health professional's attention, and they can help you walk through this information. And if you ever find something that promises a quick fix to manage your diabetes, because again, we know diabetes is a progressive disease, we can control it, we can keep on top of it, we can, prevent complications, but it's not something that just goes away. So there's really no quick fix. It's about being healthy and controlling it. Okay. So in summary, our diabetes medication is going to help keep us healthy. It's going to help control our blood sugar, help control our diabetes. It's going to help us, keep those numbers under control, which will help prevent complications in the long term. We want to take our medications as recommended by our doctor. So any side effects, any concerns you have before, changing your routine or stopping a medication, make sure you speak with your doctor. And we know that all foods can fit into our meal plan for diabetes. Some things we definitely have to eat in moderation. We know foods have carbs. We know there's foods that obviously are going to affect our blood sugar. So we have to think about those portions and that moderation, which is going to help keep our blood sugars under control. And I know I mentioned this, but your healthcare providers are always available to clarify any, diabetes related information that you might be questioning. So always review anything with your healthcare team. Okay. So we have gotten to the point of our questions. So I'm just going to see if you have a question, if anything you want me to review that we went over, or a question that you just thought of while I was talking, or that you've had, please type that in, use that questions tab that is there, and I can answer those for you. Okay, I do see a question. All right, they just give me a little tiny screen, so just give me a second to read that. Is it true that low blood sugar is worse for you than high blood sugar? So, it is bad, low blood sugar. So both of them are not a good thing. But we often say, and you may have heard, that low blood sugar is bad, and you may hear that even say, oh, this is worse. What happens when blood sugar goes too low is you run the risk of passing out, one. And let's say you were, going to drive, or you're sleeping and the blood sugar goes too low, or you're somewhere and you're alone, it could be very dangerous, because you could pass out. And what do we need when our blood sugar goes too low? We need sugar. We need something to bring it up. So we always want to know the signs and the symptoms of low blood sugar, which are shaky, dizzy, sweaty, disoriented. If anybody's had low blood sugar, you know how horrible that feels. And, usually, some people comes on very quick. So, again, with those medications, one, you want to know side effects, because there are certain medications, particularly the class of medications called the sulfonylureas. Those are a pill, an oral medication some people take for diabetes, which can cause lows. Insulin, the number one risk with insulin is low blood sugar. So if you're on medications like insulin or some of these other oral medications that can cause lows, you always want to know your treatment plan, and you always want to have something with you. So one thing I'd always recommend is anybody with diabetes, always carry a snack with them. And particularly if you're on the insulin or the medications that can cause lows. So maybe you have a granola bar in your car, your bag, your purse. Maybe you have like the crackers with peanut butter, or some kind of little thing that you can eat if that blood sugar drops. And then, or you're not, I shouldn't say that, not if it's dropping, if you need a snack, because one of the times the blood sugar goes too low is if we go too long without eating. So let's say, you're busy at work, or you're doing something, have appointments, whatever it might be, and maybe your lunch is delayed. So you ate at 8 in the morning, and now it's 2 o'clock, and all of a sudden you're feeling like, ooh. So you want to have that kind of snack to prevent those blood sugars from going low. So maybe if I wasn't able to eat lunch at like 12, I could have my snack. It's going to hold me over and prevent that drop in my blood sugar. Um, the other thing is to always carry like a treatment with you. So at the pharmacy, you can get glucose tablets, and those are tablets that they sell for anyone whose blood sugar may be too low. The best thing to do is to have your meter available. If you feel those symptoms of low blood sugar, you want to check your blood sugar. What we consider low is anything under 70. So if you check your blood sugar and it's under 70, then you want to treat it. Okay. And then by treating it is taking a fast acting carbohydrate. So it could be those glucose tablets, and it would tell you on the bottle how many you need to take. Usually it's about 3 or 4. We're trying to get 15 grams of fast acting carbohydrate. So the glucose tablets could be 4 ounces of juice. It could be a tablespoon of sugar or honey, something that's going to bring that blood sugar up. Then you want to recheck your blood sugar in 15 minutes. Make sure it's up above the 70, and then we usually need to eat something. So whether it's your snack or a meal, you want to eat something to help keep it stable. Okay, so yes, the lows are dangerous, and because that reason that you can pass out from a low blood sugar. So just be conscious of that. Know the symptoms, have something with you, a snack, have like a rescue source of carbohydrates, a little juice box, or the glucose tablets are things that are easy to carry with you in case you do have any lows. Okay, so that was a good question. Any other questions that anyone has? Okay, so somebody asked about exercise. They said I had mentioned exercise and then it helps with lowering blood sugar. And how does that do that? So, when we think about diabetes, it's never one thing. We can't like say just watch our diet and we're going to control it. We want to think of the three things working together, which are our diet, our exercise, and our medication. So oftentimes we need those three things working together to keep blood sugar under control. So I know some people aren't on medication, so maybe theirs is just the two, the exercise and the diet, but we want everything working together. So what we know about exercise is when I showed you that slide about the insulin, so people with type 2 diabetes, their insulin production is falling off. So they're not making enough insulin anymore, or their insulin's not working as well as it should. So what exercise does is it's going to help insulin do its job. So it's going to help the insulin your body's making do its job, and if somebody's on insulin, it's going to help the insulin you're taking do its job. And that job is that we're taking that sugar from our blood and bringing it to our cells where our body uses that sugar for energy. So when we can get some exercise in, it helps that insulin out. So you can kind of think of the exercise is helping the insulin do its job of getting that sugar out of our blood. So getting 30 minutes of exercise in a day is a good goal to have. And I know everybody has different um, abilities of what they can do. And, you can even think about if you don't have 30 minutes, sometimes people are like, oh, I don't have that time, or I'm not able to go that long. And that's okay, because you can have it build up over the course of the day. If you can only do 5, 10 minutes at a time, that's fine. You know, maybe you do a 5, 10 minute walk after breakfast or, dinner. Maybe you do some chair exercises at home if you're unable to get some walking in, if you have some, you know, um, restraints that you can't do certain things. Chair exercises are really good, where you're just sitting in the chair and maybe you're doing some leg lifts, maybe you're using your upper body, arm circles, bicep curls. There's a program on PBS, or you can get it on YouTube, called Sit and Be Fit, which is something to follow along. Or even, if you have the ability to do more exercise, YouTube is a good place. You can even plug in and say 20-minute exercise routine, and that's a way to kind of add some of that in, because exercise is going to work to help lower your blood sugar, which is a good thing. Okay, and someone had a question on blood sugar testing. Um, because I was mentioning about medications, and if a medication, maybe you're feeling like you need an adjustment in your medication. So one of the best ways to know, how am I doing with my diabetes? How am I managing? Is to make sure you're testing your blood sugar. So, the fasting blood sugar is important. So that's the one we're going to check first thing in the morning before we eat anything. So when we check it in the morning, our goal is that it's between 80 and 130. And then another good time to check is 2 hours after a meal. So I'm not saying you have to check after every meal, but it's good to know that fasting reading, and then it's good to know what is my blood sugar later on in the day after I've eaten something. So at that 2 hour mark, the range is a little larger. We know our blood sugar is going to go up after we eat, or it can go up after we eat. So if it's 2 hours after a meal, the range is 80 to 180. So it's good to keep a log of your blood sugars, and maybe leading up to a doctor's appointment. If you're normally checking once a day, maybe you start checking different points of the day. Maybe you check in the morning one day and in the evening another day. Maybe you check 2 hours after lunch one day, 2 hours after dinner one day, and then just keep a really good log of those blood sugars. And that's the best way to kind of see how you're doing, to see if maybe there's a certain point of the day where you are going a little low, and that might be an indicator that maybe a medication needs to be adjusted, or maybe there's a certain part of the day that the blood sugar seems to be going a little high, and we would need to maybe look closer at our diet, or maybe we need to look closer at our exercise or a medication. So keeping a good log of your blood sugars, the time you check them, if you're getting any weird numbers, anything out of range, writing down what you ate, or what your activity level was like that day, when you take your medication. This way the doctor will have a good idea, looking at those logs, what might need to be adjusted. So that's a, good thing to do. And then your A1C also, when you get your blood work done, that's going to show you how your blood sugar's been running over the past 3 months. So A1C, remember, we're looking to keep it around 7. So a 7 A1C is a good indicator that our blood sugars are under control. The higher we go on that A1C scale, so the higher away from 7, then that's when we're more at risk for the complications of diabetes. So that's why you hear, the doctor say, or your health professional say, okay, we want that A1C around 7, because we know as we get further away from that 7, higher away from that 7, we can have more complications from diabetes. Okay, so I wanted to, if anybody has any other questions, feel free, there's still time. Go ahead and type them into the question box. And in the meantime, I wanted to let you know about our upcoming live events. So we do have one typically once a month. So if you're interested in any of these upcoming live events, you can let your diabetes coach know. They can send you the schedule. If you want to jot these down today, our next one is July 12th, also at 6 p.m. Diabetes and your diet, taking it to the next level. And then in August, on August 4th, again at 6 p.m., we have blood sugar boot camp. So the ins and outs of blood sugar testing, which would be good, kind of a little more of what I was just talking about. Okay, and you always have additional Cecilia Health resources, which is great. So we have a diabetes group on Facebook, and it's Diabetes Innovation. So that's the Facebook group link. And then we also have our Cecilia Health blog. So you can go to our website, ceciliahealth.com, and you can get to the blog from there. You can go ahead and jot down that what's on your screen right here to get you right to that blog. Okay, and we do have, like I said, the live events once a month. Each one's a different topic, and you're welcome to join any of those. Whoops. Okay, so thank you for joining us this evening. We appreciate you being part of our attendance today and participating and asking good questions. If you know, have any follow-up questions, feel free, you know, on your next coaching session with your diabetes health coach, let them, you know, they'll be happy to answer any other questions you might have. Okay, so thanks for joining us tonight, and hopefully we will see you again next month. All right, take care. Have a great night.